All right, so in this video, we are going to talk about two of the largest statues in all of Egypt, if not the world, known as the Colossi of Memnon. We're going to talk about why they have this strange name and what this means. And you're basically going to hear about the alternative view concerning these statues. I'm going to break down, as I always do, the mainstream view of what they say about these statues, and then what I have read about them, researched, and seen with my own eyes up close as I have traveled to see these very statues. These statues are otherworldly, and my big question out of the gate is, are we looking at relics left behind from a forgotten civilization? Now, before we dive deep into these statues, just a quick reminder as always to please subscribe to my podcast or videos from wherever you are watching. If that's on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're on Spotify watching my video there, subscribe, and also please give me that 5-star rating if you can. Really helps me to climb the charts and break through the algorithms and stuff like that. And one more reminder, go to megalithic.marvels.com/tours. Check out the upcoming tours we got for 2026. We're going to Israel and Petra this March, and then we're going to Peru and Easter Island in May and in the early part of June. These trips are going to be unlike any other, and through the end of October 31st, you can get some big discounts. And I'll come back at the end and tell you a little bit more about those tours. All right, let's talk about the Colossi of Memnon, or as I like to call them, Egypt's 1,000-ton twin titans of mystery. Now, these titans stand near Luxor, Egypt, and as you're going to see in these photos and videos galore, they stand approximately 60 feet each tall. And the crazy thing is, each one was crafted from one solid piece of quartzite, and they weigh approximately 1,000 tons each. Get this, that is the equivalent of 33 school buses. Now, what's even crazier than that? The quarry where this red quartzite was extracted, and this is coming from my Egypt tour guide, Muhammad Ibrahim, who's also an Egyptologist and author. And according to him, this special red quartzite that these statues are made from was extracted not here in Luxor, but in a certain part of Cairo, which is over a 6-hour car drive. We're talking 500 plus miles. Now, what's crazy is, have you ever been on the freeway and seen one of those oversized loads coming through? I'm talking about a semi-truck on the freeway with this huge wide load, which is usually something like a double wide mobile home. Now, a double wide mobile home, on average, weighs, guess what? 20 tons. And in the US, the max legal weight that an 18-wheeler semi-truck can carry is, guess what? 40 tons. And we are talking here about 1,000 tons each, and that's in their finished state. But what about their unfinished state? When they were extracted from this quarry, they might have been 1,500 tons. It might have been 2,000 tons of material that they transported before they finished them on location. We don't exactly know. But what's crazy to consider is the mass, the tonnage, the weight that was transported this far, 500 miles, whether it was by land or by sea. Now, many will say, well, they were easily transported on the Nile. Well, if you've been down to the Luxor area or Aswan, a lot of these sites are along the Nile, but like where these statues stand, they're still probably a few miles inland from where the Nile is. My point is, if they did travel on the Nile, the statues, there was still land transport involved. Today, we place cargo onto ships using these massive industrial cranes that can lift up to 100, up to 500, and even 1,000 tons fairly easily. So consider, how would the dynastic Egyptians who get the credit for, making these statues, how did they supposedly lift these massive megaliths that were 1,000 plus tons especially if they were in their unfinished state, onto wooden boats. The point I'm trying to make here is that the engineering feat just to get these statues onto the boats would almost be a bigger engineering feat than making the statues themselves. I just don't feel like people talk enough about the transportation conundrum when we're talking about megaliths that weigh 1,000 tons plus each being transported, whether it's by a boat or by land, 500 miles plus. It's insane. Now, as we can see here, both statues have been severely damaged, especially the statue on the right side. If you're looking at them front on, the one on the right side has seen major restoration work just to hold it together. That's why it looks actually quite different than the statue on the left. You can clearly see how that statue on the right, the chest and the left arm of the statue have almost completely been rebuilt in later times to where it looks really blocky. Now, the mainstream narrative states that these statues were basically constructed about 1350 BC in the time of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, and that they once stood at the front of a mortuary temple for Amenhotep III, which would have been the largest temple in the Theban necropolis back in the day. Now, again, the mainstream narrative also states that this temple was destroyed simply by Nile River flooding, and that's why we literally don't see a temple behind these statues, which is kind of strange when you stop and think about it for a minute. We have two of the greatest statues on planet Earth that are standing here silently by themselves, and they were said to guard the entrance to this incredible temple, which is nowhere to be seen. So, this theory of the Nile River flooding doesn't seem to explain why the temple seems to have literally been blown apart and incinerated to where you can hardly see any traces of anything around these superstructures, these statues. So, what really happened to the mortuary temple of Amenhotep III? Now, one theory that we were kicking around on our last Egypt tour when we were getting to see these incredible megaliths, we were kicking around this theory with our group and with our guide, Muhammad Ibrahim, also author and Egyptologist, who's gone alternative. He's not with the mainstream camp. But we were kicking around the theory of, was this actually an ancient megalithic temple similar to what we would see in Giza at what's known as the Valley Temple or the Sphinx Temple, which is clearly a megalithic colossal temple at the base. You can see 200-ton stones that fit so perfectly together, you can barely see the lines. And if you're watching on video, you're going to see some examples of what I'm talking about at the Valley Temple in Giza. So I theorize that this temple likely appeared something like this. So we were theorizing, was this temple here far older, like the Valley Temple? And did it date back to 10,000 BC? And was it wiped out by some cataclysmic solar disasters, as some would say, the Younger Dryas that were striking the earth and striking Egypt, and might even help to explain the severe weathering we see even on the statues themselves in areas that look like solar flare burns on the statues. So it is my belief that these megalithic marvels predate Amenhotep and the dynastic Egyptians altogether by thousands of years, if not by tens of thousands of years. And when I say dynastic Egyptians, I'm talking about the period in Egypt's history from 3000 BC to 30 BC. Guys like King Tut and Khufu and Khafre, these were great pharaohs, but they're often given credit by the mainstream for building the pyramids, building the great superstructures and statues like this. And I believe, personally, in my humble opinion, the dynasty Egyptians came along far later, found the superstructures, found the pyramids, found these colossal statues, and etched their names in them, tagged them as their own, and repurposed them. The dynastic Egyptians would repurpose pyramids as tombs. They wanted to be buried in these superstructures because they believed it was a ticket to the afterlife. They beheld these incredible colossi statues, and they would etch their names in there because they wanted, when they were dead, to be remembered. I believe that pharaohs like Amenhotep would come across these colossal statues. They would be so bewildered and overwhelmed by their prestige and power that they would want to be remembered by these statues. And so they would etch their names in them and tag them. And I believe this is why Ramses II is one of the most famous pharaohs today. It's because he was the guy that tagged the most megaliths during his day. Again, I believe these statues depict an earlier Golden Age civilization and were engineered using some form of lost ancient technology. Again, these were crafted from single pieces of quartzite. From afar, they look eroded, but wait till you see up close. Notice the detailed muscle tone on both of the statue's knees and legs. Notice the precision detail on the skirt of the left side statue. It's still stunning, stunning detail, minute detail. And all over the bottom half of both statues can be seen what I call these deeply embedded 3D precision symbols and engravings, or some would call them glyphs, that are far superior to the graffiti-like hieroglyphs that seem to have been scratched into the statues at a later time in other places, which again is what I believe Amenhotep III likely did to claim these titans as his own. Now, many of these graffiti-like writings on the statues are Roman-era inscriptions in Greek and Latin, dated between 250 and 20 AD. And many of these inscriptions make reference to this Greek mythological king named Memnon, whom the statues back around 200 AD were thought to represent, hence the name, the Colossi of Memnon. So these Roman era graffiti inscriptions are proving my point about the tagging. Even the mainstream history would say clearly these statues were not made about 200 AD by the Romans. These are clearly ancient Egyptians, yet the Romans tagged them in Greek and Latin and tagged the name of who they thought it was, Memnon. And today we're still calling it the Colossi of Memnon, or calling them that, right? So my point is, if the Romans were tagging these colossal superstructures around 200 AD, why couldn't Amenhotep III had the same idea, right? And tagged them, or tagged the temple behind them, claiming it as his. And my point is, today we laugh that these are called the Colossi of Memnon, and everybody laughs that they clearly are not from 200 AD. They're much older, yet the mainstream embraces the idea that Pharaoh Amenhotep III in 1350 BC, just because he tagged them or his name was found around them, that these must be his, and there's no way they could be older. Does that make sense? Now, something else interesting to tell you about these statues is that in 27 BC, there was a large earthquake that reportedly shattered the northern statue. That's the one on the right side, I believe, basically collapsing it from the waist up and cracking the lower half. Hence, again, why it's in such disrepair. But following this rupture, the remaining lower half of the statue was then reputed to sing on various occasions. It would basically make this whistle noise, always within about an hour or two of sunrise, and usually right at dawn. And this sound was most often reported in February or March, but this is probably more a reflection of the tourist season than rather than an actual pattern. But the earliest report in literature is that this Greek historian and geographer named Strabo, who said that he heard the sound during a visit in 20 BC, by which time it apparently was already well known. The descriptions of the sound varied. Strabo said it sounded, quote, like a blow, end quote. Pausanias compared it to, quote, the string of a lyre breaking, end quote. But it was also described as the striking of brass or whistling. So there was this legend about the vocal Memnon and the luck you would get if you heard this sound, the luck that it would bring. And so the reputation of the statue's oracle powers became known even outside of Egypt. And so a constant stream of visitors, again, including several Roman emperors, came to marvel at the statues. Now, the last recorded reliable mention of the strange sounds dates from about 196 AD. Now, sometime later, there was repair work done to the statues. Local tradition places it about 199 AD. And after that happened, the sounds stopped. There was no more whistling. So were these strange whistling sounds simply due to earthquakes that caused some cracks in the statues or the one statue and made it whistle as the wind would come through? Or was it another reason? There's other theories that have been presented. One is that the sound may have been caused by rising temperatures and the evaporation of dew inside the porous rock, which somehow caused this sound. As I stop and think about these theories for the strange sounds, I can't help but wonder, what if there's a far more ancient purpose or reasoning for the strange sounds? What if these statues were engineered to make this sound originally? What if both of them at one point whistled or made these strange sounds? What if it was an acoustical resonance purpose? What if this sound could be harnessed to level things, to destroy enemies? What if this sound could be used to summon, or if it was related to energy, or even, dare I say, moving the megaliths? I hate to use the word levitation, but you know what I mean. What if there was something more to this whistle than we're thinking about? Well, now you know everything that I know about Egypt's 1,000-ton twin titans of mystery, the Colossi of Memnon. And let me just say this: you can join me to see these megalithic marvels in about a year from now, in early December of 2026. We're going back to Egypt, and we will be going right to the site to see the Colossi of Memnon up close. And let me just tell you, it is unlike anything you've ever seen to stand in front of these colossal twin titans of mystery. So again, you can go to megalithicmarvels.com/tours or click the link in the show notes. And soon I will be releasing the specific dates for this tour, and we'll open up registration for this tour. It's going to be incredible. And also, before I sign off real quick, let me tell you about our two other live tours we've got going this March 15th through the 23rd, 2026. We are going to the ancient Levant to see the wonders of Israel and Petra. And through October 31st, which is just a couple days, you can get $251 off registration, keeping the price at $2,999. That includes virtually everything for the tour almost, except your international flight. All you got to do is get to Tel Aviv, and we take care of everything else. If you've ever dreamed of visiting the Holy Land, this is your shot in March 2026. And here's why. Our government just brokered a historic peace deal between Israel and Gaza. And I've talked to our tour company, and they said their tours are flourishing. I've partnered with the best tour company, I believe, in the Holy Land that runs tours. They've done this for decades. We're going to see the best sites. We're going to see the Bible come alive in 3D. We are literally going to walk where many of the heroes of the Bible walked. We're going to see the can't miss sites mentioned in the Bible. We're going to go to the city of David where King David ruled. We're going to go find the battlefield where David faced off with Goliath. We're going to go to the Western Wall and actually go underneath it and see the colossal megaliths that are like 500 tons each that most people have no idea exist. We're going to go to Gethsemane. We're going to go to Golgotha and see the supposed place where Christ was actually crucified. And the crazy thing is that the rock outcropping known as Golgotha, which means place of the skull, looks like a literal carved skull. Crazy. We're going to go to the Garden Tomb and see the place that legend says Christ was buried. And the crazy thing is, it meets all 5 clues in the Bible that talk about where he was buried. So I think this was the place. So click the link in the show notes below for this specific tour to learn more, and I really hope to see you this March. And coming in May and June, we have our annual Peru and/or Easter Island tours. And I say and/or because you can do both of them, one after the other, or you can just do one or the other. And our Peru tour is May 23rd through the 30th. And then right after that is our Easter Island tour, which is May 30th through June 4th. And through October 31st, you can get $401 off our Peru tour and $301 off our Easter Island tour. And let me just tell you again, I'm biased. I think we have the best tour company that we've partnered with to go to Peru and Easter Island. I think we see all of the best sites. So with these discounts, the Peru tour is only $2,899 and the Easter Island tour is $3,299. These are incredible values. These tours at this price includes almost everything except your international flight to Lima and back. All you got to do is get to Lima. We pick you up. We take care of everything, the itinerary, the lodging, the transportation, even in-country flights. We take care of that. All you got to do is get to Lima. So we have the best tour company. We have the best English speaking guides led by Rumi Alegria, who I believe is the best alternative history geek tour guide in all of Peru. He now leads all of our tours with me, and this guy knows the deep legends that the mainstream won't tell you. 2 meals a day are always included, and then you usually get to have dinner on your own wherever you want. But the itinerary is really thought out so that you get the most for your money on this tour. And of course, we're going to take you to the very best can't miss sites such as Machu Picchu, the Nazca Lines, Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo, and many more. So every year we kind of have a free day where we pick a new site that's way off grid that I've usually never been to, where there's a lot more hiking involved, and we go wander into the remote vastness of Peru to find the most ancient evidence of megalithic earth shaping we can find, which I believe was made by a lost civilization. And of course, on this tour, we are going to give you opportunities to see many elongated skulls, which have these genetic anomalous features that I believe were 100% hybrids. So go to megalithic.marvels.com/tours or click the link in the show notes below to learn more, and I hope to see you in Peru as well. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and until next time, keep exploring.